Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis, and this is John Macon Gillespie, and we're going to talk a little bit of Ole Miss football as we reach the middle of camp. How you doing, John?
I'm doing well. We had kind of a cool spell for a couple days in Mississippi, but that is now over. It is now hot again. So staying indoors as much as possible. But outside of that, yeah, things are going pretty well.
Yeah, we're getting the cool spell right now because we're always a day behind Mississippi, and then it'll just get hot again. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Now, the AP poll preseason was released earlier this week. Ole Miss comes in at number 22, and my opinion is basically any poll that comes out with Ole Miss between, like, say, 15th and 25, that's kind of their Goldilocks zone. That makes sense. It's hard to argue with that one way or another.
Yeah, I think pretty much anything in that range is probably accurate for starting the season, just based on how last season went, but also seeing what they've added in the portal, talent they have returning from a season ago, things like that. You know, I think that that's probably pretty right. I think anything below 25 is wrong because I do think this is one of the best 25 teams in the country. But you know, I know some voters won't include Ole Miss, you know, until they kind of see some stuff on the field. But yeah, I mean, I felt like it was about right, and that's the poll that I use until the playoff poll is released. You know, I could use coaches, but I prefer to use the AP when referencing rankings and stories and stuff. So, but yeah, it felt about right. You know, I figured that would kind of be where they would fall, kind of the mid 20s, upper 20s.
Yeah, and it should be quite interesting. And one thing that I've noticed, and we did Friday's podcast on some odds, some things, and the Ole Miss under at 7.5. That's just almost like a sign that says free money, isn't it?
I would think so. I mean, I think you definitely take the over there, which, I mean, I'm not a gambler really, but I do understand how those things work. I would take the over in that scenario, but, you know, also I think you and I watch the team more closely than other people may watch the team, you know, around the country or whatever. So we may be more inclined to do that. But, you know, I do think kind of somewhere between 7.5 and 8.5 is kind of where that would need to be set entering the season, just with how difficult the schedule is. And then, you know, fans can pick whether they like them more or less than that. So,
yeah. Well, change subjects here for just a second. Like the situation with Jackson Dart. Now, for those that don't know, and I've done shows about it, and John's written articles about it, and everything else. Ole Miss football released a weird, cryptic Twitter post on, I think that was Wednesday night, that talked about Jackson Dart is focused on September 2nd, and they had the Dart emoji on there, and it was a picture of Jackson and the thing. And to me, that's about as close to a quarterback announcement as we are going to get. And I understand that Lane Kiffin is like, no, we're doing this and all of that. He's doing all of the coach stuff that he wants to do to, I guess, make Mercer not know who's going to take the first snap. But Jackson Dart, by all accounts, everybody is like, this is his job. Am I wrong, John?
No, I mean, I think you're right there. And I watch social media posts like that almost like a hawk, because they very rarely mean something, but at the same time, I mean, they sometimes mean more than nothing. I don't know if I phrased that very well, but you can read between the lines on some of that stuff is kind of what I'm getting at. And throughout camp, you and I have both noticed that we've seen a lot more posts, pictures of Dart than we have Sanders. Again, maybe that's trying to read the tea leaves too hard. Maybe it's because fans seem to support Jackson more than Spencer. I mean, whatever it may be. But we're recording this, I guess, on Thursday. So Lane Kiffin spoke to the media today, and he fielded a lot of quarterback questions. And obviously went through the whole spiel about, what good the competition brings to the roster and blah, 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 blah. And he continues to say it's a good problem to have. Part of me agrees there. Part of me thinks, okay, you talk a lot about team culture. If you want the team to really be united behind the same guy, I would think go on and pull the plug on it. But also I'm not the coach. So, and maybe he really doesn't know yet. Maybe he doesn't. But all signs seem to kind of indicate that it's going to be Dart. Will they split some reps, kind of like Dart and Altmaier did a year ago early on? Maybe. I don't know. But looking at practice reps and stuff and reports from practice and everything, it really appears that it's Darts right now.
Yeah, even in the scrimmage, which by the time you're watching this, they've done another scrimmage. But after the first scrimmage, Jackson Dart really was only in there for 1 quarter and a half. And then he just held his helmet for the rest of the quarter while Spencer Sanders and Austin Simmons and Walker Howard got work done. I mean, that's NFL preseason 101, how you handle a starting quarterback.
Yeah. And obviously Lane references a lot of NFL stuff. I mean, he has some NFL experience. He's compared fall camp to the preseason at times, not specifically with quarterbacks, but he has, with different areas of fall camp. So, yeah, that is something. And I think some fans may look at that and think the inverse about it, that, oh, okay, maybe Jackson's lost a step. But really, I think that your reading of that would be more accurate.
Yeah, I think that we're in a situation to where Lane is playing the goal with the media so that they will look where he wants them to look. But inside the locker room and everything, I think it's all Jackson Dart, and they know what's up. They just haven't said out loud, he's QB1.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess I do understand part of if it is a smoke and mirrors operation, I do understand part of the reasoning behind that. But I've always thought it's better to go on and just say who your guy is. But also, if you're trying to keep that room together for talent purposes entering the season, I do understand why you don't want to just come out and say that. So I mean, there's a lot of different layers to stuff like this, and I know it can be frustrating because I do think the majority of fans see this as Jackson's job, and not coming out and saying it in their mind is kind of delaying the inevitable a little bit. So,
yeah, and let's see, when did classes start?
I think they start Monday. Actually,
they start Monday. At that point, we are on QB1 naming watch from Lane Kiffin, because I think once Spencer Sanders goes to a class, he's kind of locked in.
Mm-hmm.
And the one logical thing in my head, that the reason that Lane Kiffin wouldn't do it is just because he's worried that Spencer Sanders could be a flight risk.
Yeah.
And maybe you want that insurance policy as a season. So after classes start, we'll pay attention to what's going on there. Now, we are about to enter the second phase of fall camp, and I want to run this idea by you as well. Lane Kiffin is notoriously said, hey, we're hitting less this time. We're doing more classroom work. We're doing more walkthroughs. It's kind of a kinder, gentler fall camp than, like, I interviewed Bill Flowers and Stuart Patrick this week, and Stuart Patrick was talking about 3 days. So This is definitely not happening in this modern time. Now, this is my point when I say all that. That would not happen if Lane Kiffin was not really confident about his team. Coaches who are not confident about their team, they go full pads, they hit, they knock the crap out of each other, and it turns into that grueling camp that we've always seen. You would not pull something like this unless you are pretty confident what you have.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. It's you're confident in the talent in your best 11 that's going to be on the field at the same time. But maybe, also just trying to keep your best 11 healthy, or as healthy as possible. And I do think there are positions on the roster where there's not a big drop off from 1 to 2, but why, when you feel like your roster's in a good place, why risk injury with it? I mean, that would seem kind of counterintuitive. So, yeah, I get it. And also I think just the game has changed so much over even the last 10 years that, you don't see as many ridiculously hard grinding fall camps as you used to. But I do think, like you said, that Kiffin, his confidence in what he has is probably, a reason why this is happening.
Yeah, I was even there with Ed Orgeron back in the early, and this is when two-a-days, you couldn't do back-to-back 2 days of two-a-days. This is after that happened. Those two-a-days with Ed Orgeron as coach, I wasn't even practicing. I was just watching, and I just felt sorry for him because it'd be like 3-hour practice. And you have people going into like the team room at that point to take a quick nap. And man, that can be brutal. And I think about what Bill Flowers went through, and I think about what Stuart Patridge went through. And I was like, man, that's absolutely nuts.
Yeah. And now that we understand more and more scientifically about football's impact on the body, I think that's one thing. But two, also in just this area of the country at this time of year with heat, you got to keep your guys fresh. And I think it's the right call. Just because it is, you and I both know in the Southeast, man, it is grueling at this time of year. And we really don't feel that drop until mid to late October. So keep them as fresh as you can, especially if you feel confident with what you have.
All right, we're entering the second phase of fall camp. So it's been this kinder, gentler fall camp up until now. Do you think they ramp up with the hitting a little bit? Do they occasionally in the scrimmage actually put contact on Quinshon? Because he does need to be hit before the season starts.
I think a little bit. I don't think it'll be a crazy ramp up, but Kiffin said today that starting, I guess, next week. Yes. So sorry, my days get all messed up, but that they're basically going into season prep practice mode. So, I do think that you'll see more of that. Maybe, like I said, not to like a crazy degree, but I do think it'll be a little opened up as we get closer to the season. And then obviously the week leading up to kickoff, it's business as usual, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, normal schedule leading up to a game. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a safe assumption.
My big fear right now that I have, and I don't have any basis for this, and I don't know if they're doing things to rectify this, but at 2:30 again on September 9th in New Orleans, not going hard in camp, I'm wondering if the third and fourth quarter there could be a cramping issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's because New Orleans, the humidity there is going to be even worse than it is in Oxford, which is saying something. So yeah, that could be a deal, I think. And you do have to find that fine line, I think, a little bit, not pushing them too hard, but also getting them in a good enough place where, cramping, fatigue, that kind of thing, especially with the heat, is not an issue. I don't get paid enough to make those decisions. So, but there are those who do, and there are teams of people who do. So, we'll see.
We'll see. I guess the Mercer game, that's something we should pay attention to. If there's a cramping problem in that Mercer game, people's ears kind of should perk up, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Every Dayers tonight, Tom Vanderford, tune in for that. Thank you very much, John Macon, for stopping by. We'll talk again next week, bud.
All right. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Take care, man.